Go back to the Ecosystems category in the Scene at a Glance, add component of this type to build one from scratch, and rename it Pineburn. On the Rules page, change the maximum slope to 50 degrees. We're only going to use one material, so we won't need the Material Gradient page. On the Material and Foliage page, change the material name to Fire Regrowth. The overstory ecotype will be pine, snags, and stumps from the old burned forest, and the understory ecotype will be young lodgepole pine from the new forest. Select Overstory Ecosystem Operations and create ecotype. On the General page, change the absolute height to Foliage Group and the absolute density to Foliage Group 2. By default, density is per polygon. This minimizes render time as fewer polygons are rendered as distance from the camera increases. The downside is that the density of trees will vary with changes in fractal depth and distance. Not good if you're using low fractal depth preview renders to evaluate a high fractal depth forest. To make density independent of fractal depth and distance, change density to per unit area and leave the area units at hectare. An ecotype is made up of one or more foliage groups of foliage objects. This ecotype will have only two groups, so create a new foliage group and name it Pine Snags. Create another foliage group and name it Pine Stumps. Select Pine Snags and set the group height to 30 meters, group minimum height to 20 meters, and the group density to 30 stems per area. On the Objects page, add Foliage Object to insert an object placeholder, which will default to Image Object. We can populate our foliage group with image objects, 3D objects, or both. We'll use image objects, so choose New Image Object from the Image Object drop-down box. Make your way to the Components, Image, Foliage, Stump, and Snag folder. Select pinesnag1.iff and control-click to multiple select pinesnag2 and pinesnag4.iff. Unfortunately, the Mac file requester does not allow multiple file selection, so Mac users will have to load one at a time. Open the Image Object Library, and you'll see the other PineSnag images. While we're here, let's also add the stump images we'll use shortly. Add Image Object to Library, and multiple select pinestump1.iff, stump2, and stump4.iff. We've added new image objects, so load fast and apply to all. Close out the Image Object Library. Back on the Ecotype Editor Objects page, add two more foliage objects and load the other PineSnag images. On the Groups page, the PineSnag group now has a plus in front of its label showing it's populated with objects. Save the project and render a preview. We'll use this group later, so save it as a component. Save Foliage Group to disk and load the WCS LastRender.iff thumbnail from the WCS Frames folder. Add your description in the comments section and save disk. Select the Pine Stumps group and set the group height to 2 meters, group minimum height to 1 meter, and group density to 5 stems per area. On the Objects page, add 3 foliage objects and load the 3 stump images. Save the project. Open the YNP environment to the Ecosystems page and grab all. The Ecosystems list determines the render order. As WCS renders polygons, it will first look at the grassland rules and see if the polygon meets all the criteria. If polygon slope is between 0 and 30 degrees, grassland is rendered. If not, the render will go to the next ecosystem on the list, Pineburn. The Pineburn won't render on any slopes less than 30 degrees because that's grassland territory. Save the project and render a preview. So far, so good. We've got snags in the slopes with an occasional one out on the valley floor. I have a bright green ground overlay. Yours will likely be different as it's randomly generated when an empty ecosystem is created. Let's replace it with a texture. A good place to start is the ground overlay of the adjoining ecosystem, so go to the grassland ecosystem, click the Diffuse Color Texture button, and copy texture. Go back to the pine burn ecosystem, click its Diffuse Color Texture button, and paste texture. When the Copy Diffuse Color window pops up, select the diffuse color as the target and apply. Edit the new diffuse color texture to open its texture editor. The fractal noise is a mix of dark green and lighter green, which is too green for a ground under a dense growth of pine trees. Let's change the lighter green to a dark brown. Select the right color pin and click its color well to open the color editor. Select the rock tone swatch, pick a dark brown, and keep. Save the project and render a preview.